Hey everybody, this is Khara Crosswhite Brindle and
Christina Murphy.
we are here with Supervisionary doing another video, this time on dual roles. I know this is showing up as we build our practices and get more into the community, and so we want to talk about 4 examples of dual roles and how those might show up in your practice. First one to talk about is probably the most unique in the sense of this has happened recently to one of our colleagues. What is it like to navigate dual roles when it comes to 2 partners that are coming to you separately for individual therapy?
Yeah.
Maybe you find out that it's happening after an intake. Maybe you hear their name and your stomach drops. Let's talk about this. Christina, your face says it all.
I know. And what's funny is I actually had a supervisee in this situation and and I actually caught it because when you're going through their notes and you start to realize, oh no, like we got a situation here where you got these 2 ex-partners, seeing the same counselor and that's muddy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a dual role like that, you can really start getting in some muddy situations. What have you seen, Khara, in terms of
the response once we're in that mud?
yeah, like what has been the mud that you have seen?
I mean, I think, especially when like a practice is close to their home, it's probably, more likely to happen than we first realized of like, oh, this is, the private practice down the street. Of course, I'm going to look there first. For my student who went through this, luckily they had legal consultation for the group practice so they could have some support, which definitely we recommend to viewers of this video, because I think there was a question of like, who came first? Do we put them as the priority? Do we discharge both and transfer to other people? What the nuanced piece, and I want your opinion on this, Christina, is the explanation that we give to that person or people to say we're not working with them any longer. Because to admit a dual role is to kind of break confidentiality in its own way.
Right. And that's where it starts to get muddy, and that's why you have to get legal consult. Yeah, definitely. So I'm curious as to what you were told in your situation. Did the legal consult tell you to go with the first person that was in treatment? Yeah.
I thought they would. What they ended up doing is crafting an email to both parties and saying, hey, we have a conflict of interest. We can't describe it further. We have some referrals, or we have a therapist we're going to transfer you to. And it kind of broke my heart a little bit because, it was abrupt. It was kind of just to the point and no elaboration, understandably. Luckily, these 2 people hadn't been in the therapeutic process long. So it probably would have been less jarring than, like, let's say you're working with them for 6 months and then all of a sudden you realize they're connected. That would be a whole different nightmare in my mind.
Yeah. And this was the same situation. And I think what happened in our situation is I'm not sure that the supervisee really knew that was happening, and didn't make the connection. But once we did, it was very new in the therapeutic relationship. So we were able to, and I think the clients they didn't get upset. It wasn't a situation. I think they were thankful that we followed ethics and didn't continue to create the dynamic that could eventually become a muddier and muddier situation. So, because I think, they eventually probably put 2 and 2 together. So.
Yeah, you almost hope that they would talk to each other, but then if they're broken up or not together, that would probably be less likely to happen.
Yeah.
Hopefully the message to our viewers that you're watching this and taking this in is get consultation, get, legal advice on this to make sure you're following your ethics and your standards. We know that sometimes the dual role is hard to prevent, which is why we're even talking about this. Sometimes it's coming in a little later in the therapeutic process, and you have different options depending on your consultation.
I think one of the things we want to make clear too is that you don't want to break the confidentiality and say, oh my gosh, we just found out that your ex is here, right?
Right.
Because you're breaking the confidentiality, so you can't be doing that. And that's why you have to be getting consult from legal and really finding out, because I, like you, Khara, thought, oh, you of course keep the first person who came in, exactly what I thought. I thought first come, first served kind of thing. And no, the fair process was you clearly got the consult from the same legal person I did.
That makes
So
sense. At least they're consistent, right?
that's too funny. So yeah.
So let's talk about the one more common to those of you in group practices, which is where you might have a dynamic of like a mother, daughter, both want therapy. Maybe they like the therapist the same. They both want therapy from the same therapist individually. Mom, individual therapist, daughter, individual therapist. What are your thoughts, Christina?
My first question is the daughter younger, a minor, or are we talking, what are we talking in terms of, are we doing a minor and an adult?
Yeah, let's start there. So teenage girl and mother. Let's go there.
Yeah. No way.
That's the short answer. Don't do it. Yeah.
And the reason why that gets muddy is because, there's going to be, mom's going to be talking about daughter, daughter's going to be talking about mom. There's going to be muddy things. There's daughter's going to eventually think that, you might be telling mom things, mom, vice versa. It's going to be hard to keep trust. And that's just another muddy situation. And that's a hard dual role to keep.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes there's triangulation, right? Where the mom says, well, the therapist told me that you did X or said X, Y, Z about me, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. And you didn't say that. And before you know it, you're saying, I never said that. And before you know it, you become part of this triangulation mess.
Yes.
And you just don't even want to tread that water.
Mm-hmm.
No way.
Exactly. I'm curious why you asked about daughter's age. Would this be different if daughter was an adult?
Maybe if they didn't live together. I think maybe.
Yeah. More wiggle room for some consultation there to say if they're not in the same household, is there less likely a chance of breaking confidentiality? Maybe.
I think you'd have to really get some good supervision around that. Mm-hmm. And really, I think if they, both adults, separate households, that's where you would have to, really see.
Yeah.
I think there may be a way to do it that way, but you would really have to do your first consultation and really fill that out and listen to your gut on that one. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think even just like having it be justifiable, right? Like, is there a paper trail? Is there documentation? Like maybe daughter referred mom. So like there's already a knowing, there's an awareness that both are trying to see you. And maybe it's because she likes your style as a therapist. And so she wants her mom to be served. I think that happens more often than we'd like to admit. And so just being prepared with some responses of like, I can't do that. Here's why, or I'm flattered, but here's what we're going to do, or here's my concern. I have an alliance with you. Now you want mom to come in, like it would just be complicated.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it may be something that you wouldn't want to do if you know that the client that you currently have has boundary issues and there's some things going on with the current client. You're like, no, we're not going to do that, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that could come into play to where you wouldn't bring in the adult daughter, but I think you would have to, for sure.
That's why we're having this conversation. If nothing else, just to put it out there, like this is something to think about. Be prepared.
Yeah. And I know some counselors have hard, fast rules. Like, no, like they will not, there's just no dual roles. Like and it's fine too. But I think sometimes, when you're in rural communities and things like that, you don't have a choice. You have to create those dual roles and you have to figure out how to navigate those.
Exactly. And I think that's a nice segue into our number 3 example of a dual role, which is let's say that you're both a school counselor and have a private practice on the side. And in your school counselor role, you have a student who has gotten to know you. And now the parent's coming to you saying, hey, they need more than the school system can provide. Can they come see you in your private practice? Thoughts?
Yeah. See, and I think that gets muddy again. I use that word a lot in situations like that. I'm like, oh, how muddy do you want to be? how far up do your boots go? So I think again, that would be a dual role that I would avoid, if I could. When you're looking at rural communities, that might be a situation that you can't avoid and you have to cross that. But I think if I could avoid that, I would definitely. Yeah. I think there would be problems there, and you would have to cross a lot of lines that would start to blur things and make it difficult for you as a counselor.
Absolutely. And I agree. I think the rural community is a whole separate animal that we have to deal with. And that's where consultation and having supports in place can be helpful to give perspective of like, what are the options based on what's going on. So I think the most common one, we went with kind of the most sticky, muddy, if you will, to like the most common, which is a friend referring a friend to therapy. So in my experience, and I don't know if this is true for you, Christina, if I have a client who really enjoys the work and is now a champion of therapy, which is always fun to see. Now they're telling all their friends, I do therapy. I love therapy. Oh my gosh, I have a great therapist. And so then that friend wants the referral. So my experience so far has been to say right from the get-go, if you refer someone to me, I will never confirm or deny that they are in contact. And so now I have clients who smirk and say, oh, I sent so-and-so to you, but I know you can't confirm or deny. Ha, ha, ha. And so it's become a game, which is interesting. What has it been like for you when this happens?
Yeah, same thing, exact same thing, such and such has referred me, and it's like, oh, well, I don't know who that is.
Or just like saying nothing at all, like,
to me, or whatever. But yeah, same thing. But again, it's really, you have to look at every client, new potential client from a lens, because some of these clients you also kind of know them, but you know them from the lens of the client that you've been seeing. So you also have to be mindful of that as well.
Exactly. I appreciate you saying that, because sometimes they come up if they're the best friend or they spend time together. I think the biggest fear when we were doing in-person sessions is, what if they're scheduled back to back, so they see each other in the waiting room, just awkward encounters.
Yeah, you have to think about all of those kind of things when you're a counselor. You don't necessarily think of that. I don't know that they have those same issues in medical doctors don't have those same, but as counselors, we have to be very mindful of those pieces.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've ever had this, but I've had situations where clients find out that another client is seeing me and didn't know that such and such was seeing you. And of course you can't say, oh, and then they say, well, did they tell you about? And you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, and it just sometimes things could get so muddy in counseling. So.
Yeah. I mean, I've literally had to kind of coach my supervisees to just be like, I can't confirm or deny. Like that's the thing that we're going to say over and over again. Even just being like, versus a yes or no, because that could be confirmation that we've seen them or they're working with us. Like it's a mind game.
Yeah, can't confirm or deny. I know nothing. Just I can't confirm anything.
This is where the counseling skill of redirection works beautifully, viewers. Please redirect. Don't spend a lot of time sitting there in that awkwardness if you can help it.
Goals, it's just good to avoid them as often as you can and not get yourself in muddy situations if you can do it.
Exactly. We know there are exceptions. We hope that just talking about these 4 examples gives everybody a sense of what would be your response. You can feel more prepared by this video. That's our hope. So it's not so stressful and it's just a little bit less muddy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well, Christina, thank you for sharing your experiences. I hope this is helpful to viewers, and we will see you in future videos. See you next time.
Bye.